on. I'm very excited to take another opportunity to introduce Peter Krauth, who's joining the Resource Maven fold. I mean, I'm excited to bring him in for a few reasons. He's been researching and investing in the mining space for several decades. He knows the space very well. He has a healthy network of contacts across the mining space, and he's a great writer. And the first project he proposed was something that we both know is needed, a newsletter all about silver. So Peter, why don't you run us through why silver deserves a newsletter all its own?
Well, thanks, Gwen. When I did my MBA in finance back in 2001, all that time that I was there, I never heard a single word about gold, and certainly much less about silver. And, since I'm a bit of a history buff, I know that silver's had a role as money for centuries, like gold. And when economies go through big fiat money expansions, silver launches into massive bull markets. And right now, we're actually going through one of the biggest fiat money experiments in history. I'm convinced that it's not going to end well. They just never do. And so, silver is, of course, a precious metal like gold is, but it also, it shares those monetary qualities, but there are some things about silver that are different. For example, the silver market is just 1/10 the size of the gold market. It takes much less buying of silver, therefore, to push the entire market higher. And if you compare it to gold, silver is also much more of an industrial metal. So it's crucial for things like green energy, like solar, for electric vehicles. And these industries are going to need a whole lot more silver in the years and in the decades ahead. Another point is that silver supply is very quirky. And I say that because as much as 70% of the silver that's produced is actually a byproduct of other metals. So even when silver prices rise, the miners that produce silver by producing other metals don't actually, or can't just simply open the faucet and produce more because the silver price has risen. It's more as an afterthought. They produce other metals like copper, gold, zinc, lead, and in fact, silver is as I say, it's just a small amount of their revenues. So when gold tends to get a lot more of the attention than silver, but what people don't realize is that silver tends to act like gold on steroids, and it always outperforms gold in bull markets. So these are the main reasons that investors need exposure to silver. Most people don't realize, but when Warren Buffett bought 3,500 tons of silver in 1997, that was something that actually generated a profit of almost $100 million for Berkshire. Most people don't know this, but Warren Buffett bought 3,500 tons of silver back in 1997. And that trade actually generated a profit of almost $100 million for Berkshire Hathaway. And people should remember, silver is much cheaper than gold. So as the precious metals bull market runs higher, investors will flock to silver as they look to get a piece of the action. And it'll be, even if gold runs up tremendously, silver will always be cheaper. So in that sense, a lot more accessible. And by then, silver and silver stocks will be many, many times higher than today. So obviously, that's an aspect of the market and investing in silver that makes sense and that people should look at seriously.
For sure. There's a lot of, all of the topics that you just ran through, sounds like a year's worth of editorial topics to explain in a silver newsletter, right? It's
exactly
a steel metal, it's a byproduct only, it's hard to increase production, it's a smaller market, it's a less expensive market, so investors are attracted to it. It outperforms gold every time. There's a lot of reasons to care about silver when the precious metals markets are on the move. And yet there's not a lot of focused attention on silver as an investment vehicle. So a great opportunity opening to step into. Since there's not a lot of opportunity, not a lot of newsletters out there that focus on silver, what is your plan of attack there? Do you want to focus on high risk exploration stocks? Do you want to focus on physical silver? Are you going to cover the whole spread? What's your plan of attack for the silver newsletter?
Okay, so yes, I will be covering the whole silver space. This newsletter will really be geared to all investors, however, everyone from novice to experienced. And I'll cover everything from silver bullion ETFs and large silver miners all the way to junior explorers. And I cover the whole range because investors have different levels of risk tolerance. Some will prefer lower risk opportunities, and some will prefer or be willing to consider and at least dabble in higher risk, high reward stocks. But all of them deserve attention. And here are a couple of examples. In the last silver bull market, one of the largest silver companies was actually up 10 times in just a span of 2 years. So remember, that's just one of the safest, lowest risk silver companies around and actually still around today. And a smaller, higher risk silver producer was actually up 1,600%. So that was 16 times your money, again, in a span of just 2 years. This year, between March and August, several junior silver explorers were actually up 10 times in a span of just 5 months. But when I analyze these stocks, I put them in really clear categories for risk, and I write at a level that everyone can understand. And I present, all of my my analysis, all of my research in a clear way, simple, understandable way. And I show people what I'm investing in, what I'm doing with my money, and they can see, where it makes sense to make moves and when.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think that not only does it provide a service for the entire investing audience, but it also is how I approach investing. I mean, when I invest in miners, I invest in everything from, if you're using gold as an example, from Barrick Gold, the largest gold miner in the world, all the way through to the pre-discovery gold explorer who's got some tiny project up in northern BC. I invest in the whole span. That's my way of diversifying within the space. So you're not just doing it for the subscribers, you're doing it because that's how one takes advantage of all the kinds of opportunities that present in a mining bull market, right?
That's exactly right. I mean, like you said, your own or my own diversification in this space is by doing that, by being invested in the bullion ETFs and some of the stock ETFs in silver, all the way to junior explorers. And it's people can adjust their risk tolerance and adjust their exposure by if they're sort of have lower risk tolerance, but they still want some exposure to the higher risk juniors, they can just simply have maybe a few positions in the juniors and keep the dollar amount exposure smaller. And again, that is simply a question of their risk tolerance and their comfort level. But there's definitely something in there for everyone, and they can adjust accordingly for sure.
Absolutely. So the bottom line is, if you like silver and you've been looking for some time for a silver newsletter that will give you ideas across the risk spectrum, that is what Silver Stock Investor is going to do. The first issue will be out on January 1st. And if you want to make sure to get that issue and to see the other ones that follow, make sure you sign up for the trial subscription using the link below.